All right, so everybody, thanks so much for listening to Fire Breathing Rob. We have a special guest on here. And if you're listening to us for the first time, please like, subscribe, and share this interview on YouTube, on the podcast. If you're listening to us on the radio, rather, we're grateful for that and we appreciate that. And keep listening wherever you're listening in general. We have Jay Sargent, and she's a special guest, and she's the author of 3 books. 1, 2, 3, we'll count that out. And it's JoJo and Me Too, and then JoJo Saves His Friends. So we're going to be talking about those books, but also she has an amazing story, also runs a stable in Rhode Island, and we're going to be talking about horses too, with Sandy Point Stables, which she runs too. But I'm getting tongue-tied talking about you, Jay, but I appreciate all you do, and thanks so much for coming on and talking with us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, so can you give the authors, I kind of told them a little bit of, your writing and a little synopsis about you, but can you give them a little bit more as far as the meat and potatoes of who you are?
Well, really, I'm a horse person. And for all these years, I've been doing horses. And we went on vacation to Turks and Caicos. And after we had been there for a while, I met this dolphin. And I became a complete dolphin nut, totally obsessed by JoJo. I think a lot of it has to do with my intrigue with behavioral things with animals. And I think that's what was part of the real intrigue for me, was to be able to meet another animal in a whole different medium and have him like me and introduce me to his friends and do these amazing things where, all I really cared about my whole life was anything that had fur. And so this was quite a different thing to be in the water. And it certainly opened up a whole new world for me, a great, wonderful world.
Can you tell us, Jay, what made you want to write these 3 books?
Well, the first book, when I first met JoJo, as you know, because you've talked to my brother, I immediately texted him. I said, "You aren't going to believe this. I have met this dolphin and he's bringing me for swims and he goes very slowly so I can keep up. And he seems to like me. And how cool is this?" And my brother said, "Well, you have to write it down. Keep a little diary about everything that happens." So I kept a diary about all my, adventures with JoJo and our growing relationship. And then, eventually, actually, I invited Billy down and I said, "Well, you should write a book," because he's the author in the family. I said, "You should write a book about JoJo and all this stuff that's been going on with him." And he came down and then he said, "This is really your story and your book and you should write this." And I'm certainly no author like he is, but I took all my entries from the diary and put it into a book. And that's how the first book came along. And then the second book was really when I started to meet other dolphins through JoJo, and Lemon Licks was just one of my absolutely favorite ones. So I did the second book about him. And then at this point, I'm really realizing a lot about dolphins and understanding about how captivity is a horrible thing for dolphins. And I thought, well, I'll write a kid's book and see if I can get the kids on our side. And they, in the meantime, had been trying to do a dolphinarium on the island of Provo. And everybody that I know was very much against that, but some of the people wanted to, make money and have people do that sort of thing. So I thought, well, I'm going to get the kids on my side. So I took all the characters in my book for the kids are from dolphins I know, and I had them, the bad guys, of course, taking a baby dolphin from its mother and trying to put it into captivity in this, horrible cement tank. And then, of course, how JoJo managed somehow to save him with the help of, the pelicans and everybody else that he could round up to help him.
So I know you said that they were trying to put that dolphin aquarium. Did they ever do that?
Nope, they never did.
Wow.
Yeah, nope.
So you
I'd like
stopped
to
that.
think
That's
that I was
incredible.
part of that, but I don't know as I was part of that. There was certainly a lot of people on the island that thought that was a really horrible thought.
speaking about JoJo and his pod, I know you met a lot of his friends in his pod. Why do you feel like they were attracted towards you?
Well, I know JoJo's had other human friends, but
Okay.
I don't know as anybody's been able to put the amount of time in to a friendship that I have been able to do. I was very lucky at that point. I wasn't sick, which, now has gotten everything messed up. But I was able to go down and just spend hours and hours in the water with him. And the more I got to know him, I got to see all kinds of things that I don't think most people have been able to see, because a lot of the dolphin experts don't spend time in the water with them. They study them for either from a pool or from
Yeah.
necropsies or something like that, but they don't get to actually go in the water and hang out with them. So I got to see a lot of that, which was, amazing and wonderful. And then eventually, after about 3 years of my swimming with JoJo, he started to come to the back of the boat, which means he wants me to get in with him. And he would bring me to introduce me to other dolphins, which was amazing. And I don't think you're going to find that anywhere in all of your research or whatever, that people get introduced to other dolphins. I just don't think that really happens. So I felt that was, an honor and very special. And that's how I got to, meet Bo and others, but Bo has been sort of the one that's been the most friendly. And she appears to like it when I swim with them, and she totally trusts me with all her kids. There's 4 calves that she's let me hang out with, and sometimes she'll go off and go fishing and do her stuff that
Wow.
she has to do, and she'll just leave them with me,
Huh.
which is,
It's
amazing.
incredible.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
To have
Yeah.
kids and just leave them with a human that, they have that trust. It's incredible. My thing is, Jay, can you talk about I know you've talked about your relationship with these dolphins, but in general, because a lot of humans have only met dolphins in that captivity atmosphere, how does that really destruct the relationship between the human and the dolphin?
Well, I think a lot of those places rely on food deprivation.
Mhm.
So they don't feed them until they do their tricks. I mean, they are basically friendly and all, but there's no way that a dolphin who lived in the wild and had no boundaries and traveled for miles and miles and miles every day could enjoy being in a little cement tank where their echolocation is bouncing off the walls. There's just no way that can be good for them. And you see it too, where they get more infections and more diseases and stuff from being enclosed and in an unnatural environment for them.
Do you feel like that's the biggest issues that dolphins are facing is that captivity atmosphere?
Well, I don't know if you've been reading lately, but they
Mhm.
have just found that at the Faroe Islands, they killed 1,400 dolphins. They herded them
Wow.
in and just killed them. And there were so many of them. I mean, they've been doing it for years and they've been using the meat, and it's sort of a
Yeah.
tradition. Well, they got so many this time, they didn't even need any of that. So now they're kind of trying to figure out what to do with the meat. It was just awful travesty against dolphins. And obviously about the cove, everybody knows about the cove in Japan, where they herd them in and
Yeah.
slaughter them. And then they take the prize dolphins and they sell them to aquariums. But
Yeah.
when they do that, they're tearing them away from their families. It's just, I mean, besides that, it's horrible, horrible, horrible when they kill them, but it's also horrible, horrible when they tear them away from their families. I mean, that's just cruel. And dolphins are smart and they're loving and they help us. I mean, you read so many stories about people out in the ocean and they've somehow gotten separated from maybe they were snorkeling or something, or they fell off their boat, or they did something, and the dolphins will circle them and keep sharks away from them. I mean, dolphins are amazing, and how we can be so mean to them is beyond me. And those Japanese people, the sooner they figure out they'll make more money off of the tourist industry, and I think they're kind of figuring it out somewhat, than the meat industry. I think that would be great. It's happened with whales.
Yeah. Yeah, we can dive a little bit into that too. For people that are listening, again, this is Jay Sargent. She's the author of JoJo and Me, JoJo and Me Too, and JoJo Saves His Friends. It's an incredible interview, and I hope people listen to this fully because really you have an incredible story about meeting these dolphins. And we're going to dabble into horses in general in a couple of seconds. Can you talk about captivity with SeaWorld? Like, so for instance, I want to get into this and get what your opinion is on this. So I have a good friend that loves SeaWorld. He's got an annual pass. He goes all the time. He says, I love SeaWorld. It's so much easier to get in than Disney as far as that goes. But and when I talk about the captivity aspect, he gets offended, says those whales would die out in the middle of the ocean if these if these people didn't take them and put them in here, they'd be dead. And I kind of know the facts that they live less in captivity as far as years than they do out in the ocean. The ocean is it's their house. So what would you say? Because we got these people that just believe these things, and then you have people that are very ignorant on the topic and they just go to the shows and they see these big, huge whales and beautiful dolphins doing these amazing tricks that they really don't do in the wild for food. So how do you kind of frame it to these people that are either ignorant on the topic or they just don't believe any of this stuff?
I think that it is fair that if they are to capture a dolphin that, like Winter, I'm sure most people have heard about Winter.
I saw Winter,
and
right?
they rehabilitate a dolphin, I think that's great. And if they can rehabilitate it to the point where it can get let loose into the wild, that's even better, which I don't think Winter can because of its tail issue. But basically, to take something that has been living in the free for its whole life and bringing it into this little cement pool, no wonder they all get crazy, and no wonder they want to drown their trainers. They've just, they're messing with their head. It's just not right. It's like us going into solitary. Not good.
I think that if you want to do that with animals, if they're endangered species, I personally believe that's fine. But if they're not endangered, what the hell is the purpose? I mean,
Right.
just because somebody, if you want to if you want to see the animals, travel to somewhere where the dolphins live. Travel to somewhere where the whales are. You go to Canada or go to a tropical place. I mean, it's a joke anyway, but go ahead, Jay.
Do a whale watch, do a dolphin watch. Then you're going to see them doing what they really do.
Right.
And that's fair for them and fair for you and amazing. And people that do it, it's so much fun. I mean, the whales put on shows, they go under the boats, they come look at you and they're wonderful. And the gray whales will even let you pet them. So, there's all kinds of ways to look at dolphins and whales without looking at them in a little cement tank.
So let's move to the end of the interview and do start talking about horses, Jay. So as we talk about horses, what got you involved in horses? I know that you said that horses were a big part of your childhood. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, when I was little, I got to do my once a week riding lessons and I loved it. And I'd sit in their stall for hours, finding little bits of grain and feeding them grass and everything. And I was just completely nuts about doing that. And then I finally got to ride twice a week. And then, after convincing my parents after years, I finally got my first horse. And then I rode and finally got into showing and doing all that stuff. And then somehow convinced them, and my parents were really pretty great about this, that they could see that this is what I really wanted to do. So I dropped out of college and I turned professional at a very young age. And the rest is history. I've gone from barn to barn. I finally have my very own barn, and it's a show barn, and we show all over the country, really. And the cancer has certainly messed everything up for me, but I'm still able to go out. I taught all morning, and I'm going to do the bills today and go back and teach some more.
Wow.
I stopped competitively riding myself before I got sick, actually. But they're still a very big part of my life, and I really am very grateful that I've had the horses all through my life.
So we're talking about Sandy Point Stables. So, how can you tell the audience a little bit about Sandy Point Stables? I know you just kind of elaborated on you and being involved in horseback riding. When did this journey start? And obviously, I know you say you do a lot of shows. Can you talk about all that with Sandy Point Stables?
Yeah, Sandy Point Stables was built by a Vanderbilt.
Mm.
So it's a really old barn. It was built in the 1800s. So it's special. I mean, there aren't many of those around anymore. So I redid the whole barn, and that was quite a feat. There are 5 apartments on the barn, and it's a barn like you won't see anywhere else. The roof is huge. It's cypress beams. It's a pretty cool place. But I did have to redo everything because it was falling apart when I got it. And I've put in show rings and stuff. So we had for a while 14 shows a year, but I've kind of backed off a little bit, mainly because there's a program that's kind of taken away from the horse shows, this IEA thing, which I don't want to get into, but nonetheless, there aren't quite so many people out there showing. So they're a little bit smaller, but then we still have about 10 shows, and some of them are huge and some of them are little. I have all ages. I love my adults, and I have some great kids. And I have an assistant trainer that helps me, and a good barn crew. And I do need more help. So if anybody out there's listening, I still need more help.
So let me ask you this, Jay. So what kind of horses do you work with?
Well, we have warm bloods and thoroughbreds, and some mutts that are anything.
Right.
We got some horses that came from out west that are quarter horses that do kind of my lesson program in camp. And then I do a lot of importing from Canada. I just bought 3 down, and I'm about to bring another one down. I've bought like 70 horses from Canada, which has been great. I have a wonderful guy there who helps me out. And he looks and looks and looks. And when he thinks he sees, as he called, a J. Sargent horse, then he lets me know, and I buy it. And it's been a little tricky with the COVID because we haven't been able to even get across the border. So I rely on his judgment, which is excellent. And we can't even ship them. So we have to get a commercial shipper to ship them down. But it's still been going pretty well. So anyway, we're lucky.
So what do you feel, to go to the end with the last 2 questions, Jay, what do you feel people don't understand about horses in general?
Well, I think a lot of people, how do I say this? A lot of people will go with their girlfriend or their boyfriend and go for a trail ride, and they're put on the wrong horse, and the horse runs away, and then they're terrified and they hate horses. So, if they go to a legitimate barn and take a legitimate lesson and learn on horses that are used to people that are beginners, I think they'll find that horses are really quite nice and smart and, very nice to people. It's just a lot of times people start the wrong way. So then they get scared for, a maybe bad reason. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It does. So let's end with this. So can you talk about the programs that you provide at the stable?
Yeah, we do. I've always been a believer in don't put all your eggs in one basket. So that as much as I love my clients who can afford to do more things, I still believe in having, a system where people start up. So I have beginner program. We do camp. We do a college. We do Salve, and that's an IHSA program. So we have really pretty much everything. And as much as everybody keeps saying, Jay, when are you going to slow down? You're getting old. I'm like, well, the thing is like everything feeds into everything. So it's kind of hard to stop something because it's all interrelated
together.
Yeah.
So let's end with this. Jay, what do you hope people learn from this interview as we've been speaking for about 25-ish minutes?
I hope that they want to go out on a boat and look at whales and dolphins instead of going to an aquarium. And I hope they read my book and see how wonderful JoJo is, because it is a relationship that's different. I mean, it's just nobody else, I think, has a relationship like this. So I think it's kind of interesting. And it's not, I mean, when I tried to find books, and when I started to get interested, I just had to find every dolphin book I could ever find. But there really aren't very many about people with relationships with dolphins. They were all about, statistics and, the scientific stuff versus the friendly stuff.
Right. So where can people find more about you, Jay, and, buy the book and all that jazz?
Yeah, I think I'm actually on Amazon, but if they go to my website and they're interested, they can let me know and I can send them a book. It's www.jojoandjay.com.
All right. And we'll put it in the description box. Jay, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Again, Jay Sargent, she is the author of JoJo and Me, JoJo Me Too, and also JoJo Saves His Friends. That's a mouthful, but we got through it. So Jay Sargent, thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.